What up, Gacha gang? Today we are talking about World Flipper. It's been out for a little bit. I did quite a bit of grinding in it, and I wanted to share my thoughts with it to you guys. Remember, 5 out of 10 means that it is an average game. It does not mean that it's failing. 5 means it is good to go. Anything above a 5 means it is an above average. It excels in a category, and it's something that you should consider looking at for research purposes, experiencing, and it means that I definitely understand why you would like it. With that being said, we are looking at graphics, story, progression, gameplay, uniqueness, monetization, and community. Graphics, I am just giving it the 5 out of 10. I think that some of the illustrations that they put on screen are pretty good. It doesn't have a lot of texturing to the game. A lot of the illustrations are pretty bland. The character designs are pretty bland in itself. And then it has the very pixelated pinball machine. Now, I'm okay with the pixelization because it is designed to feel nostalgia in that regard, so I understand that. But overall, I haven't been impressed with the graphical format of World Flipper, and I'm often wanting to see and experience more from the graphics in itself. So I definitely understand the initial appeal to the game, but it's not something that's going to captivate me and propel me to want to play the game long term. So I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's pretty average. Same with the story. I definitely recognize that they wanted the story to be a bigger part of the gaming experience, and that every time you try to hit that skip button, it tries to sum up what was happening and to keep you involved. But it very came off as a trope and cliche type of story to me that didn't have very interesting parts to it. And the actual gameplay in itself never did much of anything to convince me to want to experience what's going on in the story. There wasn't any, like, what on earth is this? What's going on? The gameplay is very separated from the story in itself, so even though they were very much trying, I think the actual deliverables when it came to how they deliver the story to you in a convincing way that made you go, huh, what's happening? Wasn't really there. So it got a 5 out of 10. I think it's pretty par for the course for a gacha game. But let's look at the progression. The progression system clocking in at a 7 out of 10 is definitely one of the largest selling points to World Flipper. I really found myself wanting to grind the game just to progress. It had a really good instant gratification system propelled into the system itself. It gave you a really good helping of rewards every time you accomplished something. When you got a rare drop, it did feel pretty good. And it felt like that one rare drop was actually going to help you. So overall, I really thought the progression system in the game was well thought out, and I could see it being something that I would enjoy for a little bit longer than I actually did spend on the game itself. The gameplay, I would put at a 6 out of 10. I think the gameplay was a really strong selling point. You're really going to like, or you're going to hate the pinball aspects. I thought it lacked a lot of depth and control, but other than that, I really liked what I was doing and experiencing and playing. I thought there was a lot of fun to be had in the gameplay system. I just felt like it was a little more shallow than it thought it was. And a lot of that has to do just with the physics behind being a pinball game. There's a lot of dead time. And there's a lot of lack of control when it comes to positioning, how your ball responds to specific elements and things of that nature. Maybe it's just my boomer brain wasn't able to compute a lot of that stuff in the moment, but hey, that's just the way I experienced it. Now let's go to the uniqueness. It is a pinball game, so 7 out of 10 kind of seemed like the base score. I haven't ever played a pinball gacha, so it was very much unique in that regard. But I would say everything else in the game, from the gacha system to the art to the monetization, everything else like that, felt pretty par for the course for a gacha game. Speaking of monetization, I gave it at a 6 out of 10. I did just mention that it felt pretty par for the course. I think a lot of the systems in play for World Flipper are exactly what you would expect them to be, but I think they did a very good job of past the initial payment phase, giving you additional rewards and making you feel like your money actually got you a good amount of progression into the game, which is what I would really like to see out of a monetization system. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. I think that your money goes pretty far in this game. And now looking at community, gets a 5 out of 10. I'm not convinced that this game is going to have a active community. It's a very casual game. It's something that you can play for a few hours out of the day at most and enjoy. I think there are ways for you to truly want to grind this game into the oblivion, but I don't think the vast majority of people that touch this game are even going to attempt to do that. It is very much designed to be casual, and from that regard, it doesn't really appeal to a larger community because people aren't really incentivized to talk, share, explore, and research this game. So the community aspect of it is kind of dying off, in my opinion, and it doesn't have a lot of, for that longevity, so to speak. But I think for a base game, a 5 out of 10 is pretty set in stone with how these ranking systems work out. It's kind of up in the air of where it goes. I'm projecting the community to trend downward for this game, And a lot of that is for it overall. I gave it a 5.85 out of 10 overall, so it means it's right below that 6 mark. It's definitely an above average game. I understand why a lot of people would be drawn to it. It's pretty average to me across the board in how it communicates to itself, communicates to its audience, attracts its audience. A lot of what it's going for is pretty easy for them to implement and be iterative on. So I think there's additional room for growth when it comes to the experience within the gameplay and the progression system, which are very good things. I think overall World Flipper was designed to be very healthy for a game in an ecosystem. So I am tentatively excited to see the future of World Flipper. It's not something that I'm openly going to recommend to everybody, but I think it's definitely worth a try for those of you that are looking to pick up a second game. It's definitely not going to be anyone's main game unless there's someone that's really busy and doesn't have much time to put into gaming and really just wants to have, a couple of 5 to 10 minute sessions over the course of the day. I think World Flipper really fits that role for those people very, very well. All right, guys, that'll do it for this here guide. So be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.